I implore you, wherever you are listening to this or watching this, please watch or listen until the end before you comment. This video is going to be a difficult one with a lot of tough subjects, but I want to make it a big tent conversation where everybody has a seat at the table and we can discuss this issue like adults. If you want, you can join my Discord and you can talk about it in there as well, as much as you will please. We'll figure out something, a situation on the Discord, but generally speaking, please, 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 listen to me and hear me out all the way to the end, because I might not be coming with the view that you think I am. Now, with all of that being said, I've been urged to do something I haven't on this channel, because I feared the backlash, but I'm taking my cues from Ocean and different people in my life to speak up and say something rather than be quiet. As an American, I'd enjoy the right to freedom of speech, just like everybody else. And while I have the right to express my opinion, I'm not free from the right of hearing yours either. But all of that said, I want to foster an actual conversation about this. So, earlier this morning, the Supreme Court ruled that the president is awarded immunity when conducting official acts. This is brought up because of the whole Trump thing and Trump asking if he had immunity as president. Would there be some sort of, executive power, given to him that would make him immune from prosecution? Right after this verdict was dropped, Trump immediately went to go and try and get a case dropped. So it is a direct correlation between legality. It's legal immunity that we're talking about here. Now, I want to paint a picture before I go into how I feel about this. As I look to the left in my room, on my bookshelf, I see a little picture of Iwo Jima. No, it is not my grandfather's, but my grandfather did serve in World War II, in the United States Marine Corps as a private. My father served in the military. He was an Air Force veteran a little bit before I came along. I have a whole host of uncles who were military affiliated. My grandfather on my mother's side was military. Funny enough, he actually played piano for the Navy. He was in a Navy band. And generally speaking, I come from a tradition of service. It's why I wanted to be a firefighter. Unfortunately, I had to find out eventually that I didn't have the chops for that, or that wasn't my calling. But, I come from a family and a tradition of service. My dad, his current occupation, he is a pastor. He's a pastor, and oftentimes he would get my family roped into things that he believed in, just about serving the poor, serving the needy, volunteering, that type of heart. They are the reason I am who I am today. But I want to jump back a little bit in that story. My grandfather served in World War II, fighting against authoritarian Nazi oppression, fighting against tyranny, because he didn't want to have it ever visit my doorstep and my shores. And it breaks my heart to think that he has to, maybe somewhere, if God is letting him, watch this happen. I'm not a big believer in ghosts, but if ghosts are real, he's turning in his grave somewhere. Because the fact of the matter is, we have an authoritarian problem on our doorstep in America right now, with the rise of the extreme right. And why do I say this? Well, it's a giant... First of all, this whole thing with immunity is just the first step in a giant playbook to try and make Donald J. Trump some sort of king. I'm not down for that. We don't have kings. This is America. Period. Nobody is above the law. And before you go and try to argue with me about this, I would like to read a few quotes about what the Founding Fathers had to say about legal immunity. What would the Founding Fathers say about today's ruling? James Madison wrote in the Federalist Papers, "The accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, whether of one, a few, or many, and whether hereditary or self-appointed or elective, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny." There is a website, there is a group, a coalition called the 2025 Project that is trying to basically just completely dismantle the executive branch and throw like almost all other parts of government under the power of the executive branch, to basically give Trump the authority and oversight over the Justice Department. They've already infiltrated the judicial branch. I mean, because Trump appointed the justices that have been swinging the rulings in his favor lately. And I'm not, it's like, that's hearsay, I understand. But when you have a straight up un-American ruling being rolled out of the Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court, I mean, it's not the same people, obviously, but the same court that gave us our Miranda rights, that's concerning, is it not? Thomas Paine once wrote, "In America, the law is king. For as in absolute governments the king is law, so in free countries the law ought to be king, and there ought to be no other." And that is from Common Sense by Thomas Paine, 1776. Clearly, the Founding Fathers did not want us to have a president who was above the law, surely didn't want us to have a king who was above the law. This is the first step in a giant coup. And this 2025 project has pretty much just said the quiet part out loud. It reads like an authoritarian strategy book to basically dismantle American government as we know it. I mean, the rhetoric is filled with harsh vitriol that seems to be echoing Trump's vow of revenge that he's made plain himself in interviews. I mean, it's disturbing. The book also, again, just to reiterate for those of you who don't know, I'll leave a link in the description, but the 2025 Project is this coalition basically, like trying to paint itself as the hero of American conservatism, basically, that will come in and save the day, and lays out the 180-day, work plan for the first 180 days of a potential conservative presidential presidency. And basically it all reads akin to Mein Kampf. I mean, not literally, but it's pretty authoritarian. I mean, one quote from the foreword actually tries to compare those with differing ideologies to them as beasts. To just read the quote off here directly, it goes on to say, "In 1979, the threats we faced were the Soviet Union, the socialism of the 1970s liberals, and the predatory deviancy of cultural elites. Reagan defeated these beasts by ignoring their tentacles and striking instead at their hearts." And that's from the foreword, "A Promise to America" by Kevin Roberts, PhD, almost said Richards. Another place where it gets kind of concerning is, it says later on, "The Department of Education is a convenient one-stop shop for the woke education cartel. This department is an example of federal intrusion into a traditionally state and local realm. For the sake of American children, Congress should shutter it and return control of education to the states." I don't know if you all have picked up yet, but I have a stutter word, but pretty bad stutter, bad times when trying to read. So forgive me if I'm, not keeping up. I'll also be throwing the citations on screen as I go along. But yeah, I mean, wanting to shut down the Department of Education because it's woke. And not even using the term woke correctly, because the fact of the matter is, you're trying to dismantle what is woke, but woke was only created as a word to describe, people who were aware of things, basically talk about ignorance and knowledge. The Republican Party has been trying to make basically being knowledgeable seen as something to be mocked. it's absurd. I mean, use a different word if you have a problem with, like, democratic policy, but it's just frightening that it seems to be often not a lot of what's, considered wokeism is just, plain common sense, not to be ironic. Another place of concern is the fact that it wants to tear down a lot of these institutions that would, give racial equality, like it's civil rights equalities and different things for LGBTQ Americans. And say what you want, whether or not you believe that it's the right way of living, they have a right to, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness the same as everybody else. But they want to shut down programs that benefit queer folk. And in the same breath, they say in the conservative promise, but the next conservative president should be proud, not ashamed of Americans' unique culture of social equality and ordered liberty. Should be proud of social equality and ordered liberty. But you want to strip away everything that gives social equality. I mean, the contradictions couldn't be more blatant, folks. It's authoritarian, nonsense at its finest. This is the platform that the conservative, right-wing American political sphere wants to serve you up. They want to make the president a king. They want to amass as much power for their guy as they can. They want to take us back, take away liberties. I'm not saying that you shouldn't vote for Trump. If it was just Trump, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is he is backed and, supported by these nutjobs who want to take us back to a place of Christian nationalism where, God and family is the center of American life. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to have a family. I want to have one too. But, like, you can't force your beliefs on other people. Another concerning piece of text from this weird piece of propaganda says, the next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society... Did I read that right? The next conservative president must make the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts at deleting the terms sexual orientation, gender identity, diversity, equity, inclusion, gender equity. Wait, just even the word gender, just a side note. This is utterly ridiculous. Gender equity. Gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitivity, abortion, reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal rule. Agency, regulation, contract, grant, regulation. Why does it say regulation twice? And piece of legislation that exists. This is from Promise Number 1, restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. It goes on to basically say that all trans people are porn stars and claim that the left wants to sexualize children. Which, I'm just... prove it. At my bottom line, prove it. Generally speaking, I'm just like, how did we get here? How did we get here where this is okay? Like, this is authoritarian BS sitting on our doorstep. Trump is walking around talking about immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. What do you think we're going to get with Trump when he has these types of people backing him? He's called white supremacists very fine people. The fact of the matter is, Trump wants to bring Nazism to the White House. It's plain as simple as that. Do you really think he's joking when he says he'll be a dictator for a day? When this is the type of stuff that they're talking about? They want to reimagine America as we know it. And I can't think of anything more frightening. Look, I get it. Maybe you're disgruntled with the way things are. Maybe you don't like the Democratic Party. I don't like them either. I think they talk a good game and then don't do shit. I get being disgruntled. But the problem is, it's not a choice of Democrat or Republican. If it was Mitt Romney versus Joe Biden, fine, give Mitt Romney a crack. This is not the problem. This is not what we're dealing with. We are dealing with an authoritarian wannabe dictator. And, even if Trump isn't the guy wanting to be the authoritarian dictator, people want him to be. But let's back up a little bit. Because a lot of people claim to be Christians who want to support Trump. And I want to think about who Trump is as a person. Book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 25 says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loves the church and gave himself up for her." Trump cheated on his wife with a porn star. Jeremiah 9:23 says, "Thus saith the Lord, Jeremiah 9:23 says, "Thus saith the Lord, let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, let not the mighty man boast in his might, let not the rich man boast in all his riches." I think you get the picture. Trump has boasted about his intelligence and his riches a fair bit. I don't think he's the Christian candidate that you really think he is. I'm not saying that Biden is the spitting image of, wholesomeness, but I don't get this campaign to present Trump as the Christian option. I just personally do not see it. But with that being said, think about how Trump acts. And listen to this quote from Alexander Hamilton. "When a man unprincipled in private life, check, desperate in his fortune, check, bold in his temper, possessed of considerable talents," I would say so, being charitable, "having the advantage of military habits, despotic in his ordinary demeanor, known to have scoffed in private at the principles of liberty, when such a man is seen to mount the hobby horse of popularity, check, to join the cry of danger of liberty, to take every opportunity of embarrassing the general government, bringing it under suspicion, to flatter and fall in with all nonsense of the zealots of the day, check, it may justly be suspected that his object is to throw things into confusion, that he may ride the storm and direct the whirlwind." I can't think of a better picture to paint of Trump. He brags about his money. He brags about how smart he is. He has a bold temper. And he is desperate to cling on to his fortune. He runs around scoffing at the principles of liberty. He's apparently tried to defy them already after the SCOTUS ruling. And generally speaking, he's sowing chaos and riding the whirlwind. Our founding fathers warned us about a man like Trump, and it is our duty to try and do everything within our power to deny him at the ballot box. I don't care where you come from. I don't care what your background is. If you believe in American democracy, if your grandfather, your grandmother participated in trying to help the war efforts in World War II, if you believe authoritarianism is bad, if you believe that this country is to be a shining city on a hill, to be a beacon to the world, then act like it. Do what you can to send this video around to your friends. Send this to people who are undecided, because more people need to see this more than ever. We have a problem in this country right now, folks. America itself is on the ballot. We need to reject Christian nationalism and authoritarianism and all of this other nonsense harshly. So please, 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 don't take my plea as me chasing, favor. I don't expect to garner support for this. I expect to lose support for this. But it couldn't be much clearer to me who Donald J. Trump is, and who's backing him if nothing else. The people behind the scenes. This is what's going to happen if we get 4 more years of a conservative majority or a conservative presidency. I really think we need to take stock and look at this for what it is. There's no longer but the economy, but there's no buts but other than but democracy is on the line. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure things seem bleak and they seem drastic and they seem scary. But for those of you of a background of faith, I would take heart. I would take heart. God has overcome the world. John 16:33. He said, I had told you all these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. And he didn't stop there. He goes on to say, my peace I leave with you, not as the world gives, give I unto you. Do not let your hearts be troubled or afraid, but go in peace. Jesus came and overcome the world. There is no principality that can throw anything into enough chaos to trump what Christ has done for us. But even if that's not your bag, hey, I get it. I'm not big on church. I'm just trying to play with people at their game, truth be told. I like Christ. I don't like Christianity. That's about as much as I'll say on that matter. You know, it's like I'm not trying to sit here and be preachy and be like, you should be Christian. No, be as gay as you want, be as straight as you want. If you want to do drugs, that's between you and the government. I don't really care. How you live your life is how you live your life, and that's my problem, is that people want to be preachy. But yeah, so if you are religious, take heart in that. If you are Muslim, if you are in some other faith, or if you're just not religious at all, take heart in the fact that we haven't gone completely off the deep end yet, and do everything within your power to spread the message so that cousin who's sitting around saying, well, I don't want to vote because, it doesn't do anything, or I don't want to vote that, because, they're both the same, Biden and Trump. A, no, they're not. We've seen very clearly that they're not now. And B, even if they were, you know what? Trump sucks. And you know what Trump said out of his own mouth? He said, if we continue to have record turnout, we would never have another Republican president ever. And at this rate, with what they're pushing right now, this conservative 2025 project, they don't need to be in the White House ever again. And that's a shame, but that's the truth. But yeah, I mean, if nothing else, we have a very stark problem on our hands. We a stark contrast between the candidates, but we have a very dark problem on our hands of authoritarianism knocking on our doorstep. Please, 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 share this message around. Like, comment, join the Discord if you want to talk about it. And yeah, just thank you for listening. Let's try and do something. I don't know if I said this on the onset, but I don't normally do this. I'm taking a page out of Ocean's book and I'm talking about this stuff. I'm talking about politics because it's important this time. Let's try and do what we can so that we still have a country at the end of the day.